I was all like, wow, it's a new week. Wow, great new week. New opportunities. And you're like, oh, I have to work back-to-back tutoring and make money to earn a living and live my life so I don't go into debt and bankruptcy and be homeless. Oh, what a shame.
Yeah.
I'm already done with your shit.
Okay, right, let's start the story. Hi, welcome to our podcast. Rosie's mad at me.
I'm Rosie. And this is Catherine.
This is our podcast, 26 to Life, where after 26 years of friendship, we've officially been together for longer than a life sentence, but looking at how it's going to go, our relationship's been more painful than a life sentence. So,
this case I'm doing today, warning, it includes a lot. There's a lot in it. There is domestic abuse, there is torture, there is murder, arson. There's a lot of different things. Mental health problems are mentioned as well. It's a lot. So this is
a relaxing Sunday evening we've got ahead of us.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one to talk about, but it's also going to be a tough one to listen to. So please just bear that in mind if you switch onto this episode and you're not feeling the best.
Everyone, please go and follow us on TikTok and Instagram. We are 26tolife_pod. We are 26tolife_pod on YouTube and Spotify. And Rosie's going to talk now.
Let's take it away. So, 20th of September 2017. So,
recent.
Yeah, quite recent. But again, I have never heard of this story before, which I thought was wild because it's a big one. It's huge. In Southfields in West London, which is kind of like Wimbledon area, it's supposed to be a very nice area. Go on.
No, 2017 and close. I get why you're confused that we haven't heard about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, 100%. What I
don't even know Southfields, if I'm honest.
No,
like I know it in relation to Wimbledon. Like I know Wimbledon, but I wouldn't have known Southfields.
No, me either. But there were some neighbours in this area, and they called the fire brigade to a house because they had a bonfire that was getting a little bit like alarmingly close to the fences, and it seemed pretty out of control. So it had been burning for about 3 hours, and at first...
Sorry, you said they had a bonfire, as in like, was it their bonfire or is it like a neighbour's?
No, it was neighbours. Yeah, it was a neighbour's bonfire. Yeah. And cool. So at first they had gone and knocked on the door to say, hey, we can see your bonfire and it's getting a little bit out of control, but nobody answered the door. So they was like, okay, we'll carry on our day and we'll see how it progresses. And then after 3 hours, it was still burning, and it not only was encroaching onto the neighbour's property, but it also smelled absolutely awful. Yeah. So they called the fire brigade and they came to the scene, they knocked on the door, and there was a man called Ouissem Medouni who answered the door. Hello?
Did you say, like, what month this was in?
September. 20th of September.
That's a weird one, isn't it? I was about to say, like, bonfires, weather.
Yeah.
Like, if it was in December, January, it'd be super odd. But September could be summer, couldn't it? Yeah.
Well, yeah, but, I mean... it was just the fact that it'd been going on for so long. And in London, you don't exactly have big gardens to be able to be doing bonfires, you know?
Big bonfires, yeah.
Exactly.
You would really be mindful as well. Like, if we would have a big bonfire in my garden, I'd be like, oh, the neighbours have kids, and if the weather is nice, the kids will be out playing. Like, you don't want to cause... Yeah, no, I get that. It's weird.
And as well as if it's a big stinky one as well, that's blowing all over the place, it's just not ideal. Not so ideal. Gross. So the fire brigade showed up, and Ouissem Medouni answered the door. So his name is Ouissem, Ouissem, but everyone calls him Sam, so I'm going to call him Sam because I've heard different people pronouncing his name in different ways, so I'm just going to call him Sam because that's how he was also known as Sam. And they said, he answered the door and he said, oh yeah, I'm just having a barbecue. And the fire brigade were like, okay, well, your neighbours are worried about this barbecue, so we're going to have to come by. It's our duty to come round and take a look at it. And they go back, and there is, in fact, has a little barbecue with some chicken thighs roasting on it. And then next to the barbecue, there's a large bonfire, which is basically right next to his back door. So there are pictures that I found, and there are singe marks on the back door, like one of those white plastic classic back doors that you get, the French patio kind of doors, and there are like it's coloured from the smoke and the fire.
He's like, yeah, don't worry, this is just the fire for my chicken thighs.
Yeah, exactly. It's just some chicken thighs.
Calm down, everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And the firemen were like, okay, well then what's this? And he said, oh, I was just burning a sheep carcass. That's why it smells. It's like got the wool still on it. He said he picked it up from the butcher's. Okay, let's think this through. You're in central London. Yeah. First of all, not only are you burning a farmyard animal that you think that you would have picked up from somewhere.
Isn't that illegal?
Who knows? But also, why on earth would it also still have its wool on it? If you're actually having a barbecue and cooking lamb, it would be skinned, like you would be ready to eat. Like why? No,
yeah,
it just doesn't make sense. But that was his reasoning. Very sure. Okay. And he said, but that's okay, I've got it under control, put it out. And the fire brigade again, they said, well, no, it's our duty. It's very close to your house. It's very close to your neighbours. It is our duty to put it out. So they started stamping it out, doing their thing, making sure that it was all safe. They start turning over some of the coals. And that's when they begin looking more closely at this bonfire. And beneath some of the rubble, they noticed jewellery, glasses, some clothing, and then a human nose and fingers.
I'm sorry. What on earth kind of idiot set this bonfire to this size? Yeah. It's been burning for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And
he says
the clothes haven't burned yet.
Yeah, and then the fire brigade come in and he's chill, just like, it's a sheep.
Yeah, but how do you get fire wrong? Like, okay, the bones, understand. Like, you're also an idiot. How have you not burnt the clothes? They literally say on them flammable.
Yeah. We'll come to that afterwards because, I don't think he made the best decisions when it came to burning a body, but it is also notoriously difficult to burn a body. I don't know if you know this. Bit, one of the hardest things to do to dispose of a body is to burn it. There are 100%, much easier ways.
But that's why I'm thinking, like, I would understand if they were like, oh my God, we found a skull. But it's like, no, we found the most flammable items.
Yeah, exactly. Bizarre. But the fireman, one of the firefighters, he says, why are you burning a body? And Sam...
Sorry, no, he didn't.
Sam says... It's a sheep. And the firefighter says, bollocks. I was like, you couldn't get more London if you tried for him to just say, bollocks, are you burning a sheep?
That's how you know they're firemen and not the police.
Exactly, yeah, for sure. Obviously, they called the police, and soon enough, the street was cordoned off, a white tent was erected in the small garden, and the street was filled with police cars.
Can you imagine being the neighbour next door being like, fucking hell, I only wanted them to put the fire out. Like,
genuinely,
Jesus Christ, you didn't have to arrest the man.
That was the thing, that they were literally watching because they'd obviously seen and heard this and smelled this bonfire. A few people had complained about it and, had the way that neighbours talk about these things. And everyone's watching
on your WhatsApp group.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's watching this fireman show up, and then all of a sudden there are policemen. There are I think they said there were 2 fire trucks, 6 police cars, a white tent, and then Sam gets walked out in handcuffs, and they're like, "Oh shit! Like,
what did we do?
What have we done? What is going on?"
Oh my life.
So obviously it was quite badly burnt, and when they were looking at it, at first they thought it was a child because the remains were so small, and so that's what the news outlets were quickly saying. They were saying, child burnt, found in a bonfire in the back garden in southwest London, blah blah blah. And it was known.
How did we never hear about this?
Tell me about it. Like, genuinely, how did we not hear about this? And there were 2 kids that lived at that property, but when Sabrina, who is Sam's partner, arrives home with the two young children. The neighbours are like, okay, well, if it's not Sam, it's not Sabrina, and it's not her two kids, there's only one other person that it could be. And it was later confirmed that the remains belonged to the one other adult that lived in the household. Her name was Sophie Lionnet. Sophie Lionnet was their au pair. Do you want to explain what an au pair is, Catherine?
No, I'm okay, thank you.
No, you're not.
You've got a really good description.
Au pair is essentially, it's not an official job, really, is it? It's basically like a trade, essentially, that you give someone food, accommodation, and essentially pocket money, quote unquote pocket money, and they help with looking after the kids, maybe some household chores, doing shoppings, and basically helping run the household, essentially. Is that right?
Yeah, the main thing I'd say to it is a big exchange is that they're there to learn the language and live the lifestyle. So for a lot of them, they're young. The idea of living in, let's say, southwest London would be incredible, but it's such a huge expense that a lot of young people might want to, you know, often like maybe the age of 19 to 25, they go and live there, work there, but they also learn the language, they get to immerse themselves in the culture, but they live with you. So you cover their bills, their boarding, their food, everything like that. And it's great because also, you know, they can teach your child another language and you can teach them English. And yeah, it's a really handy way to do childcare, especially because childcare is so expensive.
Yeah, and they obviously also get the benefit of living in a place that they probably wouldn't otherwise be able to afford, because living in London is incredibly expensive, and they get a little bit of a pocket money, I think they call it on the Gov website when I was looking it up. Because they don't say how much you should or shouldn't pay them, it just says that you should giving them
roughly it's between like 80 to 110 pounds a week, but it's dependent on how many children you have, because you also, like, if they take the kid, I mean, I've known au pairs who literally will drive the kids everywhere and blah blah blah, so you'll cover all travel fees, things like that. So it's kind of down to the families what you do.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so
it does leave them open to be exploited, though. I will say
100%. Which is essentially what happens in this story. Spoiler alert. Yeah. So Sabrina, who is the mother, so Sabrina and Sam are in a relationship and they have two kids. Sabrina said that Sophie had left the house days earlier. She had no idea where she was. She had assumed that she had gone back to France, which is where Sophie was from. And she said that all she knew was that they were planning on having a barbecue. But even though she said that she had no idea where Sophie was, they happened to find a suitcase of Sophie's things in her shed and clumps of her hair in bags in their garden. So if she had no idea where she was, then why on earth were all of her things stashed away in their shed? It's not as if Sophie is just going to disappear and not take all of her things with her, you know?
Yeah. But also, if you are an au pair, you have those conversations. Like, even if you're not happy with where you are, you say, like, this is the day I'm going to go home. People know. Like, no. I mean, it would be, in my opinion, a rare occurrence for an au pair to just up and walk out without the family knowing anything. Because you've got to think of the spanner that throws into the works of your childcare and everything.
Yeah. 100%. And so Sophie had been with them for 18 months. I'll tell you more about her time with them. But she'd been with them for 18 months, and someone who's there to look after the kids, primarily. There's no person in this world that's, even if they had a terrible experience, even if they absolutely hated the parents, there's no person in this world who's not going to spend 18 months with two children and not feel bad for them.
No,
you know, most people who are in a childcare kind of situation, they love kids and you bond with the kids, and they could have horrible parents, but you would feel guilty for abandoning the children. You know, it's not, you would do it for the sake of the child, I guess. I don't know.
We are still incredibly close to the au pairs that we had as children, and to Leo's au pairs, to the point that they go on holidays with us, they still come and visit, we go and visit them. I mean, you know them.
Yeah,
You know, they spent
exactly.
Christmases and birthdays and whatnot with them.
Yeah.
I don't need to name them. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So they become part of the family.
Yeah,
It's weird that
for
you just
sure.
be like, oh yeah, a couple of days ago she went.
Yeah, exactly. No, for sure. And so when the police asked her, okay, well, can we have her name so we can look into this and we can find out where she is? And she said, yeah, her name's Sophie, but I don't remember her last name. And the police are immediately suspicious because they're like, well, if she's been your au pair for 18 months, how the heck do you not know her last name? What? It was just, they were so terrible at lying. This whole situation, they were just terrible at lying. Within 36 hours, they were both charged with murder. But surprisingly, this whole story starts in 2011 with Mark Walton. Do you know who Mark Walton is? Do you recognise that name?
No.
He
I thought you were
is
going to say Mark Wahlberg.
the founder of Boyzone.
What?
Yeah, Boyzone.
When you say founder, like manager?
No, he was a founder.
What?
He was one of the members, and he was
was
one of the
he?
people that got it all together. Yeah.
You know I wasn't a Boyzone girl.
No.
You were Robbie Williams, and I was
Westlife, obviously. And then when I looked back on it, I was thinking, do I actually know any Boyzone songs? And I genuinely, I mean, I probably would if I heard them, but I couldn't name one off the top of my head. But anyway, I mean, Boyzone are kind of like a Westlife. For people who are not British listeners, they're
a Backstreet Boys. They're an NSYNC.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Okay.
And everyone has like the Backstreet Boys or NSYNC thing. And I think Boyzone, A1, Blue, Westlife, they were all of the same era. Mm-hmm. We loved Blue actually as well. Yeah. That was one we did agree on.
And Mark Walton actually ended up being the manager of Blue as well. So
really?
He was quite big in that music industry. Yeah.
So what the heck has he got to do with this murder?
Yeah, it is wild. So
have we never heard this freaking story?
I know. So in 2011, Mark goes to a NatWest bank in Notting Hill. Notting Hill, also a very fancy area. And he sees this absolutely stunning woman. And he basically gets talking. He asks for a number. I heard a story about how their first date went. I don't know if this is true, but basically he got her number and she invited him to this bar. And when he got there, he realised that he was not the only guy that she'd invited to this bar. And there were actually quite a few, maybe like 12, 13 other men that she'd invited to this bar. And it wasn't to go on a date, it was to be enrolled in her pyramid scheme.
No way.
Yes.
That's how you use your looks to your advantage, right?
100%.
If you can get 13 good-looking guys, one of them who's freaking in Boyzone, like you're
in Notting Hill as well. Your
MLM is gonna do all right.
Yeah,
100%.
And obviously, a lot of people left. A lot of these guys left, and Mark said that he was intrigued, and so he stayed, and they ended up dating. So this was Sabrina Kouider, and you might recognise Sabrina from the start of our story. It was
Sam's
indeed
wife, girlfriend, partner.
Exactly, it was indeed the same Sabrina, and he fell for her hard and fast. He soon started supporting her financially, moved in with her at a flat in West London in early 2012. And he even started to bankroll her dream of becoming a fashion designer. Even though he gave her literally everything, she was volatile. Once he said no to buying her something in a shop, and she ran out into the street shouting that Mr. Boyzone has no money. Just in the street, having a fit, some kind of tantrum like a toddler. Mr. Boyzone has no money. She once reported him to the police to say that he had pictures of other women on his phone because, that's a real emergency that 999 need to be called out for. And also to say that he was sexually assaulting their cat. But get this, they didn't own a cat. Nor had they ever owned a cat. So, what? He also found that she had hidden cameras in the flat. She accused him of having sex with male sex workers, which apparently is why she'd put the cameras in the flat in the first place, but obviously didn't find any proof of that. And he once woke up to a hard punch in the face, which was apparently because he was snoring in his sleep.
Jesus Christ, this woman is
the number of times that I want to punch Jack in the face because he's talking in his sleep or snoring or something, but I don't because I'm not a psychopath.
Yeah.
If she didn't get her own way, she often threatened to kill herself, grabbing a knife, running out into the street, all of these manipulation tactics. And despite this, he said that he was desperately in love with her. Now, I've seen lots of different accounts of Sabrina's children, and there were some that said that she didn't have any kids when she first met Mark. Some were saying that she got pregnant with Mark but then moved away to have the baby and then came back. And then there are others that said that she went to France to have the baby. Some that are saying that her eldest was Mark's and the youngest was somebody else's. And then others are saying that the youngest was Mark's and the eldest was somebody else's. I really cannot get... I cannot pin down who...
So we don't know how old the kids are?
No, I don't know how old the kid... I think it said that one of them was born in 2013, but I could not find any information on the kids. I think they were thoroughly protected from this whole case.
Well, so, fair enough.
No, 100%. But I could not pin down the parentage of these kids. But for sure, Sabrina has 2 sons. It's not confirmed whether either of them are Mark's. However, from what I have gathered from most of the sources, I think it is supposedly the younger one. So in their time living together, they hired multiple nannies and she would always fire them, either saying that they were too friendly with Mark and wanting to sleep with him, or that they were stealing from her. There was always some excuse. She fired every single one. And although he was desperately in love with her, he realised that she was, in fact, a bit of a psychopath.
And massively abusive.
That wasn't his word, so I'm just saying that. But you can only assume. And they split up. Despite breaking up in 2013, he continued to send her thousands of pounds over the course of the next year or so, paying her rent, staying in contact. They would email frequently. Sabrina was still making allegations against him, saying that he had tried to kill her. She was still obsessed, but he moved to LA, requested several DNA tests to prove their son's parentage, which she refused, and so he eventually cut her off completely. But that made her spiral even more. She was obsessed. She was delusional. She had obviously already at this point, you can see that she has some serious problems. Now we move on to Sabrina and Sam. So Ouissem Medouni, Sam, they had known each other since 2001. They were kind of like on and off lovers, and when Mark left, they pretty much got back together. And it was one of those ones, it seemed that like she always left Sam when she had a better option, and then as soon as that fell through, she would go back to Sam. It was also believed that one of the children was his, but again, who's to know? We could never be sure. Sam was pretty much infatuated with her and did everything for her. I don't know how she got all of these men to be obsessed with her, because I can barely hold on to the one. But no, I'm kidding.
That is so not true. He loves you so much.
He does love me, bless his heart. Poor thing. And Sam had to deal with the same accusations as Mark. She called the police because he was working late and said that he was neglecting her. She set the curtains on fire once when he got home late. Not to say that he was a victim in all of this, but like, what the fuck? And in January 2016, they decided they needed help with the kids, and so they hired an au pair.
How are they so rich?
So, I mean, we'll get to that as well. But she was getting a lot of help from Mark at first. So he basically set them up in this £900,000 flat in Southwest London in the Smithfields.
Like bought it.
No. He paid like a good few months' rent.
Okay.
I think over a year he sent many £1,000s to her over the course of a certain amount of time, and then eventually cut her off. But she was trying to be a fashion designer, so I think she did get some money from that. But Sam was a financial analyst, from what I gather. So I think they did have some money.
Yeah.
But I genuinely don't know what Sabrina was actually doing most of the time, to be honest.
Just being a bit of a lunatic, just running around causing chaos.
Pretty much. So in January 2016, they hired Sophie Lionnet as an au pair. Sophie was from a small town called Troyes in France. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Troyes. Troyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Don't know how to say it. No, how to spell it.
Either.
But which is unlike me.
Described it as a small provincial town, which just made me think of Beauty and the Beast.
I've only seen it once. We've had this conversation before. You're way more obsessed with it because I went on about Gaston.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was only a few hours drive south of Paris, and Sabrina actually grew up in Paris. So she was French Algerian, but she grew up in Paris. So she spoke fluent French. So it seemed like a good fit for her to have a French speaker, for Sabrina who speaks fluent French, and for them to be able to interact with the kids in that way as well.
Sorry, Sabrina grew up in Paris.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sophie was described as gently spoken, super lovely, a bit of an introvert, but she was well-mannered, quite shy. She studied early years care at college, and she found it difficult to get a job locally. It's because it was obviously quite a small town that she came from. So when she saw an advert for a French-speaking nanny in London, she decided to apply. She told her mum that it was just temporary. It would give her experience to help her find work back in France and to help her improve her English. So just after Sophie's 20th birthday in January 2016, she moved to London and started working for Sabrina and Sam full-time. However, within a few months, Sophie was working 80-hour weeks and being paid very little, if at all. Neighbours and locals commented on how they never ever saw her with anyone. She didn't have many friends or much of a social life. I mean, I guess it could be quite easy for an au pair to be isolated if you don't know anyone there or know the country or make an effort to get out. But there were
It depends what you have as well. Like, so many of our au pairs met other au pairs in London who spoke Spanish.
Yeah, exactly.
And would go out with them, or like they'd come here, or like they'd have dinner parties and stuff. Yeah.
And I think in that area, because was quite a well-off area, I think a lot of people did have au pairs. They did have the means to be able to have au pairs, and so there was a bit of a community that she could have joined. But obviously, being paid so little and with working 80 hours a week, she didn't really have much money or free time to be able to get out and start living her life. But that was just a small part of the control and the abuse that Sophie suffered. But it wasn't long before people began to notice that Sophie was becoming more and more withdrawn. A friend of Sabrina's visited the house and noticed that Sophie was basically in a constant cowering position. She was dressed from head to toe without any skin showing, even though it was the height of summer. And you could tell, even under all of those clothes, that she was super, super underweight. They witnessed this abuse and called Sabrina out, and she basically told them that it was Sophie's fault because she was lazy and didn't cook enough. This friend even went back and gave Sophie some food because they were worried about her. Another of Sabrina's friends had to stand in the middle of them when Sabrina got mad, knocked Sophie down, and then was threatening to kick her. When she couldn't kick her, she then picked up a chair, and this friend had to wrestle the chair out of Sabrina's hand to stop her from hitting Sophie with it. This same friend then invited Sophie to their house, bought her a train ticket to go home to say, you need to get out of here. However, when Sabrina found out, she stormed over to her house, demanded Sophie got her stuff and went back to their house, and she completely cut off all ties with this friend of hers.
Call the police. I know she's tried there, but call the freaking police.
Exactly. There's a lot of instances in this when you just think somebody should have said something, and in the documentaries that I watched, a lot of people had that regret. You know, they said, I knew that I should have said something. I knew I should have done it, but there was some that said, I knew that I should have said something, but by the time that I even thought about it, I found out that she had died. You know, it was awful. So Sabrina and Sam pretty much would not let Sophie go. She once wrote the couple a note to say that she wanted to go home to visit her family. She had missed Christmases and birthdays, and she'd never even been home for a weekend. And she said that if she wasn't allowed to go home, then her mother would call the French embassy. But when they discovered that she had told her mother about some of what had been happening there, they took away her phones and access to the internet, so she had even more limited contact with the outside world. But the thing is that she hadn't told her parents about what had been happening there. All she had told them was that she was bored, that the kids were hard to manage. She didn't tell them anything of the abuse. Her parents really had no idea what was going on. I don't know if it's like a teenager thing when you think that you need to make it on your own and you're too embarrassed to ask for help, but always ask for help. Don't be embarrassed because this isn't your fault, you know?
When the parents realised that she was out of contact, like, what did they think then?
I don't know how they managed to get around it, but Sabrina would let Sophie call her mum, but only on Sabrina's phone, and Sabrina was standing in the room with her the whole time. So I don't know whether she kind of still let them talk, but just only so often. And she also wrote letters, but that was only when she could afford a stamp and was able to sneak them out to get them in the post. So it was, I don't know much ins and outs of that, but I think that
Sabrina had full control over any contact anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And in some of the interviews, her mum had said that Sophie was quite a quiet person anyway, and sometimes you really had to kind of pull the words out of her when you were talking to her. You know, that was the kind of
like
teenage. I think the exact opposite of us is what Sophie was. And so I think that her mum probably wasn't. She almost didn't really think much of not being able to talk to her all the time because her daughter wasn't very talkative most of the time anyway.
Yeah.
At one point, Sabrina insisted that Sophie had stolen a diamond ring. She kept telling her to put it back and she would let it go, but Sophie obviously didn't know anything about it, so how could she put it back? And Sabrina was persistent about it, going on and on and on about this diamond ring, telling her that she won't call the police if you just put it back where you found it. And Sophie's like, well, I would, but I literally do not have this ring. How am I supposed to put it back?
Please call the police.
Yeah.
Please.
This is the thing. She once marched Sophie into the police station and told her to confess. And they're like, confess to what? And she said that Sophie kidnapped her children to be sexually abused by other men. The police cottoned on pretty quickly that Sabrina was lying. They believed Sophie. They separated them, and then they asked Sabrina, if you really believe that Sophie is doing these things, then why are you still hiring her? Why don't you just let her leave? And she didn't have an answer for them, but they said that she left quite happily after that. It was almost like it was just the show. She just wanted
the attention.
She just wanted the attention. She just wanted to, terrorise Sophie a little bit more. And the thing that irks me with this is that, do you remember the Shana Grice case that I covered? And she got a fine for wasting police time, a £90 fine for wasting police time. Yet this woman is making reports of
selling children into sex trafficking rings.
Exactly. She's calling about her boyfriend abusing a cat that they don't own, that doesn't exist. Yet they're basically just being like, okay, yeah, no, fire her if she's doing bad things.
But also, Sophie, when they speak to her, surely, I mean, I know that these things don't happen and I know that but do they not learn, look out for signs of abuse?
That's the thing. They must have been able to see that she was incredibly skinny and underweight. I genuinely don't know, because that right there, that they have failed her, because how could they
her
speak
in a
to her
room
directly
until she discusses it? Find a French translator if you need
to.
Sit her there and be like, well, you've made this allegation of abuse against children. We have to thoroughly investigate it. We're going to have to question her for the next 14 hours.
Genuinely.
Get it out of her.
Yeah, we're just going to send her back to France because she's a horrible person.
We don't want her in the country. We can't prove it, but we just don't want her here. We've got to send her home.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Save her. Help her. Anyway, in September 2017, Sophie told her mum that she wanted to come home, but she needed the money. So her mum deposited the money that she needed to buy a ticket. And she planned on... I think she bought a ticket, but I don't know for sure. By what I've read, I think she bought a ticket that would get her home on the September the 18th in time for her sister's birthday. I also saw that her mum received 2 calls from Sabrina after this, saying that she was actually keeping Sophie because they had some disagreements that they needed to sort out. And her mum told her to send Sophie home. She said she pretty much begged her to send her home, but she never did make it onto that train home.
If someone called me and said, I'm not sending your child home because we have to sort out some disagreements, I would climb through that phone and rip her little head off.
And considering this is France, it's not that far to get to London from France. It's a direct train from Paris. Like, Troyes, where they were, was a couple of hours south of France, from Paris. And I understand that you have full-time jobs. They were a working class family. I don't think they had a ton of money, but
your kid is somewhere in London being held hostage by a lunatic.
And the thing is that I think if they knew, in all of the interviews that I've seen, they said that if they knew the extent of the abuse, they would have been there in a heartbeat. If they knew how bad it was, then they would have been there. But I also saw in one interview that Sabrina had told her mum that she needed her there for herself, because Sophie was like a little sister to her and she was going through a hard time and she needed her there for emotional support because she just didn't want to be alone. And so it was all very manipulative. And again, I don't know exactly what is the truth, but either way, it just seemed like Sabrina was just manipulating everyone that she possibly could. So the September 18th was when she was supposed to have that ticket, and she didn't make it home on that train. And it was September 20th that the neighbours had called about the bonfire, and that was when her body had been discovered. So when the body was discovered and they confirmed that it was Sophie, and remember I said that it was so small that they genuinely thought it was a child.
Oh my God, I forgot.
Yeah, they started looking into the living situation. They found that their apartment only had 2 bedrooms, one for Sabrina and Sam, and then one for their 2 sons. There were different reports of whether she stayed in the bunk beds with the 2 boys or at their desk. It was like another
What?
Yeah, at a desk that she slept at. And another report saying that she just slept in a small dark room by herself. So either way,
Oh my God.
And I'm pretty sure it's the law for the au pairs at the very least to have their own room. Is that not the case?
This was the au pair's room. This is like double bed, wardrobe.
Room, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was very nice.
Like, that's what... I mean, don't get me wrong. There are...
But you can't have them sleeping in the same room as the kids. That's
not
okay. No. Either way.
I mean, I don't know if it's illegal, but it's not okay, because it does mean that they never have privacy. It means that they never have sleep.
Yeah.
Like, it means that they are on the clock 24/7.
Exactly. No, 100%. So she was only allowed to pick up the boys from school or to do the grocery shopping. And I already said before, so when Sabrina took away her phone and internet access, she was only allowed to contact her parents on Sabrina's phone with Sabrina standing in front of her. But that was only the beginning. And soon the evidence started to tell the real story, and it was worse. Way worse. Back to Mark Walton, Sabrina became convinced that Sophie was in a relationship with Mark. Even though he was living in LA and Sophie had never met him, she was convinced that he was breaking into her house. Sophie and Mark were having sex in Sabrina and Sam's bed, and she would accuse Sophie of always smelling of sex when she came in the house. She demanded that Sophie tell them where Mark's house was so they could go there. Sabrina even drove Sophie around the area, shouting at her to tell her where Mark lives. Show me the house. Show me where he lives. Eventually, Sophie just picked a house because she was terrified. She didn't know what to do. Sabrina knocks on the door. The poor people that lived there obviously had no idea who Sophie was, or Sabrina, or why Mark Walton would have been living there. Oh, yeah, genuinely.
It's not funny, but that is ridiculous. Can you imagine if she came up to your front door, you'd be like, what?
Who the fuck are you? Yeah.
Who the hell is Mark Walton?
Sam told the court that after that...
What's Sam doing in all of this malarkey?
Yeah, oh, you wait. So Sam told the court that after that, Sophie actually returned home with a fat lip after that particular outing. Yes. Mark testified in court about how she had reported him to the police over 30 times since they broke up. He said it was the most turbulent relationship he'd ever had, which seemed like a bit of an understatement, but whatever. And in 2017, which was just before Sophie died, when Sophie was still living in London with Sam and Sabrina, Sabrina had made even more public claims about Mark, saying that he had sexually assaulted her sons, that Sophie had taken her son to him for the abuse, to facilitate the abuse, She was posting false claims on a fake Facebook profile to say that he was a paedophile, but there was no proof. Sophie did not know Mark. Mark didn't even know that Sophie existed, but somehow she believed that Mark had basically placed Sophie in their house to facilitate all of this abuse. She was saying about how she believed that Mark was using black magic to control Sophie.
She's not well. Like, no. Surely they have to, like, I don't know.
No, definitely. She's not well. She even once went to the local shop and asked the shop owner. She showed him a picture of Mark and said, "Have you seen this man?" And he said, "No, why?" He said, "Sabrina told him that Sophie and Mark were both attacking the children." And he said, "Well, why don't you go to the police?" And she said, "I am. I just want you to know that if you see him, he's dangerous." Like, even including people from the outside world, this isn't just in your bubble. This is a lot. There's so much more than that. During the post-mortem of Sophie's remains, a specialist found that she had several broken ribs and a broken sternum, both of which had occurred...
Is that here?
Broken sternum, yeah. It's like your breastbone kind of type thing. And that, both of which had occurred 3 days before she died. So it wasn't as if that happened at her time of death. That wasn't part of her cause of death. That was, she was living for at least 3 days with several broken ribs and a broken sternum. And although her body was quite severely burned, and it took a specialist to be able to say what was post-mortem and peri-mortem and all those kinds of things, they said that the sternum is incredibly hard to break. And because it's quite a flexible part of your body, and so
that kind of implies she's been like stamped on.
Yeah,
like,
well,
kicked or stamped on.
They said that it's indicative of like a car crash. You know, it's
that pressure.
Yeah, so she also had a broken jaw, which had happened around 2 hours before her death. But all of it shows that she had been severely beaten in the days leading up to her death. They also found 18 audio files from the 6 weeks preceding Sophie's death of various quote-unquote interrogations that Sabrina and Sam had carried out. There was at least 8 hours of footage. They made the courts listen to these 8 hours, and they were both shouting, swearing, berating Sophie non-stop. There were loud noises of bangs and crashes, which you could only assume is of them hitting her. And when you heard Sophie talk, she just sounded so weak and terrified, and she was barely audible when she responded to them. Like, I have shivers even saying that, because you also...
She's broken.
She is broken, and you can see the transcripts of these audio tapes. They never released the full tapes, but they released the transcripts, and it's Sabrina just over and over again basically telling her, they were likening her to a Nazi collaborator and saying that she's worse than a murderer. And they were saying, "You're going to go to prison for 40 years. Close your eyes and imagine being in a cell for 40 years. And how would that feel? Being in a cold room for 40 years. That is what I'm going to do. I'm going to spoil your life like you spoiled mine." She's shouting and she's saying, "Tell me where he is. Tell me what you've done. Tell me how many times you've drugged me," and all of these things. Just over and over and over again. And poor Sophie just has to say, no, I didn't. And it's just she's so weak. It's just heartbreaking. But the idea of these interrogations, quote unquote, was that they wanted to catch Sophie, quote unquote, confessing to something to implicate Mark Walton so they could give the quote unquote evidence to the police.
So why is Sam going along with all of this? Clearly she's...
This I'm going to come to as well. But really, they were just torturing her. Like, at the end of the day. They were convinced that Sophie was allowing Mark into their house to drug them. They were saying that she was taking the kids to Mark to facilitate abuse, and that also they were drugging them so that Mark could rape Sam and collect samples of his sperm.
What?
Genuinely. And at one point in the transcripts and in these tapes, he says, apparently he strips off naked and he says, "Touch me where Mark touched me." touch me where you let Mark touch me. And it's like, that's so...
So now they're sexually abusing her.
Well, I mean, they're just absolute monsters. The whole thing, they're just monsters.
But I don't know if I buy, like, do they believe all of this? Or is it a way to be able to torture her and they just have come up with this weird narrative to go along with it?
I genuinely think that Sabrina believes it. I genuinely think that
and what, Sabrina... Sam's just sadistic.
So I was going to bring it up at the end, but I'll talk about it now. So essentially, there's this something called folie à deux. Folie à deux. It's basically...
Spell it?
It's FOLIE space A space 2, so DEUX in French. Folie à deux.
Folie à deux. Yeah.
And it basically is also known as shared psychosis disorder. And it's a rare mental disorder that causes people to share delusions. So there's one person that has this delusion, which is Sabrina, and then somebody else who believes it, because whether it's because of love, whether it's because of manipulation, but Sabrina was essentially paranoid and delusional, and Sam believed her fantasies because he truly loved her, and that made him unable to think critically about what she was saying. So although Sabrina was the one that had this paranoia, Sam just believed her because it was her, you know? And so...
Do you ever think that about, like, when you get abusive parents or couples or something like that, and you think, how is it possible that two people have found each other? Because you're not on a first date going, I beat my children or I do this. So how is it that you get there? Do you know what I mean? Because you would think that most people, when they see someone treating their child, I can understand, I'm not condoning, but I can understand ignoring it because of fear or anything like that. I can't understand the joining in.
Yeah, taking part. I don't know if that's the same. I don't know.
But it's just when you said it's... Yeah. No, I get psychosis, but like when you started saying like it's like when they share that... I don't know what it is. It's like, it's more than herd mentality, isn't it? It's
weird. So they would also hold her head underwater in the bathtub. A lot of these interrogations happened in the bathroom, and to try and get her to confess to Sabrina's allegations. They would also waterboard her, which is when you hold a towel over the mouth and nose and pour water. So every time you try and take a breath, you are just drowning. They would beat, berate her, and like I said, the transcripts online just show it was never ending. It was non-stop abuse for hours at a time, and it was horrible to read. And I was going to put some in here to talk about it, but I mean, if you really want to go and find it online, it's quite easy to find. But
I'm actually good. Do you know what?
I just don't. Good. I didn't want to put any more time to it because I cannot. It's genuinely heart-wrenching to read. It's not nice to read somebody going through that.
Imagine being someone in the court, like a juror or a parent of the person, like of Sophie's parents, or I mean, I don't know if they were there or anything, but like
they were there. They came over from France, and they didn't. I mean, obviously, it's quite an expensive thing to find money to stay in London, to be there for the trial for such a long amount of time, but somebody actually sponsored them to pay for them to be... I know, so lovely. But imagine just coming all the way over to England and having to spend weeks and weeks just learning about conditions in which your daughter was tortured and eventually died.
No, I can't. I wouldn't.
They made her sign confession notes that obviously were not true, and after a while, Sophie actually began to confess to things. She just wanted to say anything to try and make them stop. You would. That's the whole point of torture, is that they make you confess. There was a final video of Sophie, and in it, there's one still from this video that is taken. I don't think anyone ever sees the full video outside of the jury, but in this still, you can just see how frail and withdrawn and truly emaciated Sophie is. And putting that side by side next to the pictures of her as a bright and youthful, smiling teenager from all of the other pictures that are shown of her. But in this video, she pretty much confesses to everything. She says that yes, it was her. She did all of these things that she's saying that you're saying that I did. She confesses to everything. And the next morning, Sabrina tells her children that Sophie has gone and we're not going to see her again. So that video was the last time that there was any footage of her alive. She pretty much confessed to everything, and whether or not they said that they wanted to get this evidence to be able to give to the police, but it seems like Sabrina pretty much just took it into her own hands and decided to kill them anyway. Sophie's exact cause of death was never determined due to the damage done to her remains by the fire, but they assumed that it was drowning because of... I mean, I'll go through some of their testimonies later on, but they assumed that it was drowning because of some of the damage to her lungs. But I don't think it's as important because there are certain events between her dying and them finding her body in the bonfire. But one thing that I genuinely thought was one of the sickest things that they could have done during this whole situation was that they put Sophie's body into a suitcase and put that suitcase under her son's bed. How sick is that? How absolutely awful. How sick do you have to be?
They obviously have no regard, not only for human life, but for their children.
No.
Like, you have just ripped away every bit of stability and safety that those children ever had.
In my heart, I already feel it. So next I'll go through the trial and basically what both Sam and Sabrina have said about the whole situation. So soon after they were arrested, Sam said that her death was actually an accident, and it happened when they were interrogating her. He said that he lost his temper.
It's not an accident, then, is it?
Exactly. Why are you interrogating her? You don't do that to a normal person. Sam said that he lost his temper, punched Sophie, and her head hit the tile, and that's how she died. So
that's not an accident.
He pleaded guilty of manslaughter rather than first-degree murder, and this was thankfully rejected. And it wasn't until 4 days before the trial that he actually changed his story when he learned that Sabrina was actually blaming it all on him. And he said that he only said these things.
Excellent.
Yeah, I love it when they turn against each other.
Me too.
He said that he only said these things because he wanted to protect Sabrina, because he loved her so much and because she had been going through a lot. He then moved on to say that Sabrina had assaulted her with some kind of a cable in the days leading to her death, like an electrical cable type thing, hit her with it. And that although he was involved in the interrogations, he was never actually violent with Sophie. He then said that he actually had nothing to do with her death whatsoever, and he was actually sleeping when Sabrina came in, woke him up, and said, "I don't know what I've done. I don't know what's happened. I don't know what I've done." He tried to revive her, but she was already dead. And he said that he didn't call 999 because he didn't want to stop doing CPR. But he must have stopped doing CPR at some point, so he wasn't.
Can I just also
doing
say
CPR
something
for
there?
the next 48 hours, was he?
I don't believe that story, right? Yeah. But let's say it was true.
Mm-hmm.
I still would not care. Because the fact is, you have let that poor girl live in your house, starving, abused.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care. Like, to me, I don't care how it happened, any of that. Yeah. You both killed her. You are both guilty of kidnap, torture, everything under the sun.
Yeah. No, genuinely. 100% I'm with you. Absolutely. He also said that Sabrina had told him not to call 999 and that's why he hadn't, which...
Put your big boy pants on and do something sensible. Jesus Christ.
He acknowledged that he knew that Sophie was so badly injured that she couldn't walk or stand properly. He acknowledged that she needed immediate medical attention and that he did not seek help for her. He acknowledged that he was there during the interrogations and did nothing to stop Sabrina.
They need to stop calling them freaking interrogations.
Yeah, and he acknowledged that he should have bought Sophie a ticket to go home and that he should have helped her more. But he did say that he didn't call the police on Sabrina regarding the abuse because he didn't want social services to take the kids away.
Which wouldn't be the case at all.
Yeah, but the kids should have been taken away. So on Sabrina's side of things, they started to delve deeper and received even more accounts from the locals about her very volatile behaviour. At one point in their local shop, she couldn't pay for something. In the shop, she couldn't pay for something. And so she called the police, and the police had to be like, this man is trying to help you. Why are you calling the police on the man that you're trying to steal from? And so then she turned against the police and started going crazy at the police. Like, a local fish and chip shop owner gave Sophie free chips and a soda because he was a nice man. And he said that she ate it like she hadn't eaten in days. Sophie hadn't confided in him, so he said that he asked her because she was looking very withdrawn and very tearful, and he asked what's wrong, what's going on, and Sophie said that Sabrina had beaten her, and he said, why did Sabrina beat you? And she said, because I dropped the butter. He wanted to help her. He wanted to help her find another job. He offered to pay for a ticket to get home. But Sabrina found out. She dragged Sophie to the fish and chip shop, screamed at the business owner, screamed at Sophie in French, so nobody knew what she was saying. And she was basically saying that Sophie wants sympathy from everyone, that she has men all over the place, that you don't feel sorry for her. She's a horrible, horrible person. And the
fish and chip shop, did he believe it?
I don't think he believed it. I think it was just very much the case of, I don't want to get involved in this kind of.
Oh, people, please get involved.
Please get involved. Always get involved.
But don't always get involved. That's terrible advice, but sometimes get involved.
When questioned about what they put Sophie through, Sabrina became defensive, and she said, I did not imprison Sophie, okay? I was the prisoner sitting in the house with Sophie walking around with Mark Wharton. The prosecutor said, you were treating her like a slave. And Sabrina says, no, she was treating us like a slave. It was the opposite. I was cooking, washing her, buying food. She was living like a princess in my house.
This woman's a psychopath.
Yes. The prosecutor also said about how their behaviour on these tapes were pretty awful and suggested that they were probably even worse when they weren't being recorded. And he said, did you really think it was appropriate to treat a 21-year-old woman who was not particularly worldly wise in this way? And Sabrina said, she did want to be interrogated, otherwise she would not be there. How delusional is she? Like, I genuinely have no words. I have no words.
No.
Anyway, in Sabrina's account of events, she said that they were both a part of Sophie's final interrogation, but at some point her sons woke up, and so she took them to her bedroom where they asked her to lay down with them until they fell asleep. Another source said that she just went to bed because she was tired because she hadn't slept in a few days, but who gives a fuck? Either way, when she woke up again, she said that she found Sam standing over Sophie's dead body, and it was Sam who told her not to call the police. And she was like, okay, even though she called the police when her boyfriend was late home from work, she called the police about apparently...
man that she was trying to steal from.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently there was another time that she called the police because there was a wooden toy in her bath. What?
Honestly, this woman is a freaking horseshoe, and we need to get rid of her.
Exactly, but
the
jury are supposed to believe that she didn't want to call the police when there was a literal dead body in her bathroom. Okay, yeah.
Do you reckon? How do you feel about the death penalty?
I mean, a hit and miss. I think that there a lot. I'm sure that there innocent people have died from the death penalty. But I also think that in situations like this, when you know 100% without a shadow of a doubt that somebody has killed and tortured an innocent woman, I think that it is something that should be considered.
And has no remorse.
Yeah.
Honestly, why do we need to waste the money on feeding you?
No, exactly. But it's not, I don't even think it's about feeling remorse. I think she genuinely believes that what she's done is the right thing. I genuinely think that she's so delusional. She doesn't actually have any idea of what she's done. I don't know. There's something about it.
But my issue with that is like, okay, you believe that this woman is going around with Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg.
Don't get him involved in this. He does not need to be involved in this mess.
Whatever, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
You still know killing someone's wrong.
Yeah, well, yeah. Apparently after
and also, sorry, the other reason I take issue with it is because if she genuinely believed that, why is she not pressing charges and doing stuff about it? People who have these beliefs, these paranoid, whatever mental health conditions go with it, surely she believes it enough to have the conviction to actually follow it up with something.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the shows I was watching, I didn't write it down about it, but she basically said that she had all of this manipulative kind of way of going about this whole interrogations and all of these paranoia, but she didn't have the mental capacity to be able to deal with the aftermath. She wasn't intelligent enough to be able to keep up with the lies thereafter. So although she was super manipulative and she was super clever when it came to manipulating people, when it got to a point where she actually had to justify these actions,
she's very unintelligent.
She didn't have the emotional intelligence to be able to do that, which is why all of her lies were very, I don't know, thready. She just wasn't very good at kind of defending herself afterwards.
As holy as a cardigan.
Apparently, after finding the body, Sam standing over Sophie's dead body, she started hitting herself in the head and panicking and crying. She said that he told her to get into the suitcase to see if Sophie's body would fit, and she was crying and he was laughing at her. She said that it was Sam's idea to have sex next to Sophie's body to mark the occasion.
Ew.
Yeah. And that he was the one who told her that they were going to have to burn the body. She also told the court that she was not violent and had also never made a false accusation against anybody. And so that whole thing about Mark Walton sexually assaulting the cat that never existed is not a false accusation. Like,
put her in the bin.
Yeah, she denied all of her friends' accounts of the abuse that they witnessed. She even discredited the fish and chip man by saying that Sophie was sleeping with him and that Sophie was a slut. She was then asked about her diagnosis in May 2017, which is when she was diagnosed with depression and borderline personality disorder, which is also not an excuse, but she did admit that she was not well, which I think was a understatement. But this whole thing was essentially a his word against her situation. The reports were the complete opposite of each other. Sam said that he was asleep, Sabrina said that she was asleep, that the other one was the one that they found standing over the body, that they were the one that needed the help. Neither of them admitted to being in the bathroom at the time of Sophie's death. However, there were two other people in the house at the time, and although it was never officially confirmed, it was assumed that it was one of Sabrina's sons. But they basically said a witness told how both Sabrina and Sam were yelling in the bathroom on the night of the murder, and that witness confirmed both of them in there during the final interrogations. Ultimately, both Sabrina and Sam were convicted of murder and sentenced to 30 years in prison.
So...
not that much at all. It wasn't exactly clear who killed Sophie because they couldn't determine who gave the final blow, who drowned her, they couldn't even determine the exact cause of death. So there was no way of knowing exactly who it was.
Can we go to that parole hearing when we're like 60 and be like, no, don't let them out?
Yeah.
Who are you? Nobody really. Just, we really dislike these people.
Oh, brilliant. So psychologists have described this as a rare example of folie à deux, like I said, or shared psychosis disorder. Sam really just bought into Sabrina's fantasies and truly believed everything that she was saying. I think in the court, he started to see reason a little bit more. I think it was almost that he realised that this wasn't possibly true, that this couldn't have happened, and it's almost as if they pulled the wool back out from over his eyes, and he started to realise that she's just ruined my life, but too little too late. Go on.
I also think, though, if he's so in love with her and blah, 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 why are you, like, why would he care? Like, why is he so on her side about where is this man living? Like, her obsession with her ex?
Yeah.
That's also weird to me.
But I think but also because they had, no, but I don't think it was about just the fact that where is her ex? It was about the fact that he believed that he was coming into their house and abusing their children and abusing him.
No, I get that bit. But then why are they driving around trying to find him?
Yeah, I think because they wanted to confront him. They wanted to know.
Oh, okay. It wasn't like she was still obsessed in love with him, but it kind of is. She definitely was. Yeah,
exactly. Sabrina wrote a bizarre and enraging apology note to Sophie, which I'll not even read because I hate it so much. It doesn't take any responsibility. There's no accountability for what she's done in this note, and I hate it. And so don't even bother looking into it. It'll just make you so mad. But I will finish on letting you know that there
now
are
I want to know.
Do you want me to read it?
No, I don't want you to read it. I just want you to tell me, what is she apologising for if she's not taking accountability?
She's basically saying that oh wait, I'm gonna have to find it now. Dear Sophie, may peace be with you.
Shut up.
First of all, I wish everyone, including Sophie, especially her parents and family who are suffering badly, to know how deeply sorry I am for what happened to Sophie. Okay, for what happened to Sophie, or what you did to Sophie. Exactly. We shared many good times together, as well as pains, until things went terribly wrong and it ended up in this horrendous tragedy. I think of you every day and I am shocked and sad that you are not part of this world anymore. It feels like a horrible dream to me that I wish I could just wake up from.
Nah, I'm done. I'm over it. Honestly, I'm over it. She can. She
says, I am suffering every day thinking of you and what happened to you.
I don't care. Suffer. Honestly, suffer so bad.
Oh my God. Yeah. But
I don't think that's suffering enough, if
exactly.
I'm honest.
But that's the thing, is that she acknowledges that something horrible happened, but she doesn't acknowledge that she was the reason that something bad happened, you know? She doesn't apologise.
So we don't care. No.
Yeah. Exactly, definitely.
Not that her apology would actually, like, we'd still think you were an evil, sadistic human being, but you still, like, I hope she carries on with this outlook, because I'm going to be honest, she should never get out. She should never, ever, ever be eligible for any kind of parole hearings. She should never, ever get anything. If you tell me that this woman is going to be released or has been released, I swear to God, I will hang up the phone on you right now. We're not on the phone, but I will hang it up.
No, so Sam appealed for a reduced sentence, but it was denied.
Good.
I think they both have now accepted the fact that they're going to be in prison for a very long time, not long enough. But I did read something very limited. I couldn't find anything much about this after the fact, after their sentencing. So what I did find was limited, and whether or not it is entirely true, I don't know. But I did read that Sabrina went to a prison that was in a specific ward for the psychological, the more psychiatric patients, which meant that she did have better treatment. She was allowed to go out on daily walks, wear your own clothes, have like certain privileges. But I don't know for sure if that's where she stayed, because again, I could not find out what happened to them.
I'll find her.
Yeah, I mean, please do if you can, because I couldn't find anything past all of the news articles saying what had happened. So yeah, no,
aren't their prison numbers all? Oh, maybe if not, if she's a psychiatric patient, but I'm pretty sure you can access all prison records to find out where people are. I've definitely searched that before.
Yeah,
and then we can find out where she is.
But when you search Sabrina Kouider, that's everything is just this, all like pages and pages of news articles. It was really hard to find anything that was like a legitimate source. So if you can find anything on where she is now, then that would be fantastic. But also,
I'm mad for a few reasons. I'm mad because we didn't know about it.
Yeah.
I'm mad because I don't think 30 years is enough.
No, definitely not.
And I'm mad because there were so many opportunities to help that poor girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know she's not a girl, she's a woman, but she's a baby. She's 21 years old. She was vulnerable. She was in another country, away from her family, away from her home. There were so many opportunities to help her. And I'm not saying that these people failed her or whatever, but people could have done more. There was genuine opportunities that people could have done more. And I think,
the only thing that I'm grateful for is the fact
that
the
boys are out.
The boys that are out. The boys are out. Also, I couldn't find anything about what happened to them, so I'm glad that they're not out in the spotlight, people abusing them, whatever. But I'm glad that they're out. I'm glad that they're safe. But one thing that I am low-key glad for is that they did call and report that bloody bonfire, because if nobody had reported that, they could have got away with this. They could have got away with all of it, and Sophie's remains could never have been found. They never could have proven anything. You know, I'm so, of all of the failings in this case, that is the one thing I'm glad.
That one firefighter
at
being
the
like,
very
bollocks.
Exactly, yeah. Imagine if someone was like, oh, all right, yeah,
fair enough, yeah, it's a sheep.
Yeah.
And then we'd be doing an episode on, like, this fucking idiot 10 years ago thought it was a sheep.
Oh, God, could you imagine? But I'm on 2% battery, so we're going to have to wrap it up.
So tired after that. That's emotionally drained me. I love you so much. Thank you so much. You did extensive research on that, and that was really good. I'm sorry I made you mad, but I'm glad you've cheered up now with a bit of true crime. Please go and follow us on everything. I love you so much. Have a wonderful Sunday, guys.
Yes. This is going to come out on Friday.
A Monday full of new opportunities. A Monday.
Are you taking the
full
piss?
of... No, I'm being deadly serious. A Monday full of new opportunities.
I'm leaving.
I'm going to spend tomorrow morning researching at the gym. Love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.